Hey folks, it's Swank Ivy with another Letters to an Asexual. This is number 74. I'm going to do a really short one for you today. I really didn't want to let the month of December go by without uploading something, but I've just been super busy and a little distracted, and right now I've got family in town and all this stuff, so, holiday madness. So I want to share a comment that I received, weirdly enough, on a karaoke site. This is not a place that I encounter a lot of jerks, so I was surprised to receive this one, but someone commented on one of my singing videos and told me it was really great, and as per usual, if you really like someone and want to check out, what kind of person they are or whatever, you can go look at their profile on the site. And this is the comment that this person sent me after browsing my profile on the karaoke website, which it really doesn't have very much there. It has a couple links to other music-related things and mentions the other stuff that I do with writing, drawing, and what I'm doing with music. And so it's not extensive, it's just a few links and some explanations of stuff I like to do. This person says, "Hi, SK," which I don't know what that SK is a reference to. I don't know how you get SK out of Swank Ivy. Those two letters exist in my username, but I don't know why you would decide that that is a nickname. No. Anyway, so this guy writes this. "I breezed by your bio and wondered if all your interests somehow represent a search for identity or replacement for gender identity. As you say, you're asexual. And if having to fill that identity vacuum ever becomes draining. And do you ever wish for a day when just being you will be enough? I also wonder if you consider yourself as having Asperger's. Do you consider yourself a perfectionist? Do you think these concepts are linked or not?" Oh, my goodness. I can't even believe the amount of assumptions that are packed into that tiny amount of text there. I guess I'll just read you my response first so that I don't end up repeating myself. This is what I responded. "Yikes. You have zero idea what asexuality is if you think it is a gender. You're kind of embarrassingly ignorant, but you can do better in the future by doing some basic research on topics unfamiliar to you before you send messages like this. It's pretty baffling to project an identity vacuum onto someone and interpret their varied interests as a sign of dysfunction. Your bizarre misinterpretation of my personality is an expression of your projection, not anything you're actually able to see in me. You wouldn't come across a straight person with a lot of interests and send them a message suggesting that rich variety is an attempt to fill a void in an empty life. My gender identity is pretty typical for a cis lady, but even if it wasn't, this would be a laughably ignorant thing to say to a non-binary person. Asexuality isn't a gender, but you don't even understand the distinction, and here you are pitching leading questions about dysfunctions you think you've analyzed in a stranger. Asking questions about whether someone you don't know is neurotypical is also inappropriate in this context. What you're doing is honestly just weird, and you should stop. No one will want to help educate you or engage with you if your approach to starting a conversation involves invalidating someone's identity while in complete ignorance regarding what it even is and connecting it to negative stereotypes. I am not willing to have a conversation with someone who approaches with judgment and is clearly not sincere about correcting their ignorance. You should really ask yourself what you thought this message would accomplish. Do not try to contact me again." I've noticed a pretty disturbing tendency for people to conflate gender stuff with sexuality stuff. I mean, I guess it's pretty common for maybe gay men to have people suggest that they think they're women, which is not the same thing. Like, it's like somebody thinking they're another gender because they're trans or non-binary is another representation of bigotry. But when you're gay and you're not trans, it's even more bizarre. It's like, do you really think that somebody's sexual orientation is the defining factor in their gender identity, like whoever I'm attracted to makes me a man or a woman or not either one of those, like, is that really how they think? It really seems like sometimes with all the people who stroll by these, educational videos and say things like gender confused and whatnot to people like us. It's like, even if I was, that wouldn't necessarily be, like, it wouldn't be a bad thing. I mean, you can go through some confusion and figure stuff out. It's not shameful, but that's not even what I'm dealing with here. And being an asexual person isn't necessarily linked to gender, so but then, of course, the main thing, besides his clear confusion about what asexuality even is the idea that if I'm atypical in some way that he doesn't understand on the gender and sexuality spectrum, then I must be struggling, I must be confused, I must be exhausted with the burden of trying to figure myself out. And that stuff that's just normal and stuff that you would not interpret as any kind of dysfunction in a person that you didn't already have those prejudices about, all of a sudden becomes a telling story of a person desperately trying to find meaning in a life that's so confusing and empty. And the idea that you can tell this about me by walking by my profile on a karaoke site. Sometimes when I engage with people like that, I do my best to make my criticism accessible, and I want to kind of emphasize that this was not really an attempt to engage with this guy. I can and have done better with that sort of thing when I felt like it was deserved, but I felt like I had been made such a snap judgment on that he didn't deserve any kind of special treatment where I would carefully try to not make him feel accused or not make him feel like maybe he was bigoted, because he was. And you shouldn't look at other people who are unfamiliar to you from backgrounds that are different from yours and say, gosh, you have so many problems. Have you ever thought that maybe you like to do a lot of stuff in your life because you're fundamentally confused and disordered? Like, and also that side note about Asperger's, like, it's very common with both trolls and people who think that they know what they're talking about in mental health contexts to diagnose other people based on, your understanding of certain disorders and certain variations. It's not necessarily a terrible thing to say, okay, I'm familiar with this syndrome, or I'm familiar with this disorder, or I'm familiar with this brand of non-neurotypical identity, and I think I recognize it in another person, or I think I recognize it because this is my identity and I think I can recognize my own. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but when you have somebody connecting it to a bunch of negative stuff and then also attaching, like, and by the way, have you ever considered maybe you have Asperger's? It's like, it's not a terrible thing to try to consider whether that describes you, but when it's offered that way in combination with trying to, I don't know, put me in some kind of confused box, it's very inappropriate, and it's also ignorant, because anybody who works in mental health should know that it's irresponsible to diagnose somebody with anything based on behavior you think you see in a very small sample like that. It takes a lot of nuanced inquiry and working with the other person to figure out, what words describe what differences they may have mentally. Personally, I've never been diagnosed with any autism spectrum anything. I'm not saying that it's a complete impossibility, but I don't have any reason to pursue a diagnosis. And I've considered it before, because there are a lot of, I I guess, similarities between people who are introverts and people who are non-typical in other certain ways, people who are creative, people who have unusual forms of communication. There are some similarities and some crossovers between our communities, but they are not definitive of it necessarily. And I don't identify that way. I have not self-diagnosed or professionally diagnosed myself as having Asperger's or anything like that. So when somebody comes into my inbox to say, oh, maybe you have this, maybe this would explain some things that I clearly think are messed up about you, it's not coming from a loving place. It's not coming from a place like, I want to help you figure yourself out. It's like, it's some kind of knee-jerk reaction to seeing something that you think is weird. And I don't know, I think that also sometimes people who are clearly enjoying their lives and have a lot of fulfillment on display, it threatens certain kinds of people, and they look at that and they think, this can't be real, this has to be a lie, this has to be a fake, this has to be some kind of cover for something else, because I can't imagine that somebody actually is this happy or is this diverse in their interests. I don't know, it's like some kind of need to enforce mediocrity, I guess, or narrow experience into a very controlled understanding of what the human experience should look like. And I see it all the time. People really want me to know I'm not special, and I don't need them to think I'm special. I just need them to leave me alone if they're not interested in talking to me and engaging with me on a respectful level. I don't need people to be walking by my internet profiles and telling me, so this is a laundry list of all the things I think might be wrong with you. Did you ever consider that maybe these things might be wrong with you? You know, while demonstrating the complete ignorance of what I'm even saying those terms mean. So, anyway, that is going to conclude this Letters to an Asexual segment. And I will see you next time, next month, next year. Thanks for watching.